Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now, a spate of mass shootings in the country is raising concern. Gun-Free South Africa is calling on government to act decisively to prevent more massacres. It says recent killings in the Eastern Cape and KZN will not be the last if authorities do not act fast. To discuss this further, we are joined by Adele Kirsten from Gun-Free South Africa. Adele, thank you very much for your time here on eNCA. Now, of course, we have to discuss this almost every single year, the issue around criminality and how guns are always found, in most cases at least, to have been behind the killings of many people during crimes. But you're of the belief that if government doesn't eradicate guns completely in South Africa, these mass shootings will continue?
Hello, Massacres. Yes, I mean, you can't have these kind of mass shootings with several people armed with powerful weapons going into a group situation. That's what enables so many people to be killed in one time. And it's the availability of these weapons. So over the last 10 years, we've seen a steady year-on-year increase in guns leaking into criminal hands, both from civilian owners and from the state. But in the last 18 months, we've seen this new pattern of mass shootings. So in some ways, it's not new, because in the 80s, in KZN, primarily, we had these kinds of mass shootings. What's different with these mass shootings are a number of things. One is the location is quite varied, from hostels to taverns to private homes. What is driving this? What is the motive? The other is increasingly women are part of the victims. Most of our gun violence-related victims are men. So there's some shifting patterns and trends. What is government's analysis of what's going on? And as important is what is their response? And the most obvious thing is to set up a specialized firearms unit, which looks at these incidents and devises a very clear strategy going forward. And this has to happen immediately. We have the resources, and certainly we have the urgency.
Now, of course, Adele, you know, there'd be those South Africans who say in a country that is as violent as ours, and in a country where in most cases, you know, there's been complaints about police inaction, some South Africans who have guns in their homes to protect themselves might say they don't agree to Gun-Free South Africa saying that there shouldn't be guns allowed to be used by civil citizens at all. What would be your response to those South Africans?
Massacres, it's a complex issue, but that doesn't mean there aren't some solutions.
Yeah.
The one is that we're talking about the entire firearms management system. So we're talking about all firearms and all ammunition in this country, some of which is in the hands of the state, some of which in the hands of the civilians. Across the world, the majority of licensed guns are in the hands of civilians. In this country, it's the biggest source of legal guns moving into the illegal market. Those guns have to be recovered, but we also have to turn off the tap. Where is the source? And this is why the specialized firearms unit is critical, is they need to get the criminals, but as important, they need to get the gun. Because if this gun is not recovered, it can be used to commit crime again and again and again. And what's important is, where did this gun come from? So that we can put to bed, in a way, some of these debates of it's only illegal guns. Well, all guns were legal at one stage.
Before the illegal,
I think the second response to that is there's just no evidence anywhere in the world, including in this country, that guns are effective for self-defense.
And in this country, actually, the law does stipulate that you might be the one that goes to jail if, for instance, you try and protect yourself. Even though someone got into your house and they die, you might actually face jail time for that person's murder. But Adele, when it comes to legal and illegal firearms, etc., you're mentioning that, of course, for firearms to become illegal, they were legal before. So do you think also there should be a discussion around the Amendment Act to the law around the ownership of guns to also feature, the easy way that a person can just become someone who owns a shop that can sell guns to civilians? Do you think maybe the discussion should also go around there, laws tightening who can sell guns maybe?
Definitely. I mean, that's one of our calls, is that there are a number of decisions or actions available to our government, one of which is we have an amendment to our current Firearms Control Act. It was put out for public comment 18 months ago, and it's stalled. We would urge government to bring this bill to Parliament so that there can be further public debate, but that MPs can engage and that we can get a much stricter and stronger law. What the law also suggests, and what we as Gun-Free South Africa and communities we work with will lobby for, is that there have to be checks and balances on the state's ownership and control over its own weapons. So the gun law regulates gun owners and individuals who own guns, but it has massive opportunity to hold the state to account for its own guns. So those are some of the biggest sources of guns moving from the legal into the illicit market. We have to stop this. We can. Our government can do this. We've done it before. It feels like, we've got 30 people being shot and killed every single day in this country. In this last week, what was made visible for us was 22 people. And we're talking in an instant, 22 families or more whose lives are shattered and devastated. We cannot continue with this. It's unacceptable that it's business as usual, that we hear nothing from our government about this is our plan, we're taking this seriously, this is what we're going to do.
So I just have to ask you, I wonder what your research shows you, because guns have been a problem in South Africa before, right? Until, police and government started announcing the fact that there'd be a period where there'd be amnesty in terms of you handing in your gun so that they can destroy it, etc. And I don't know, is it because of our reporting as the media? Because it seems as though, even though guns have been a problem in South Africa for many years, it seems as though these mass shootings are becoming a thing now. So is that what your research is showing you? And why would that be? Or is it because we're just reporting about it more now?
No, Massacres, I think you're raising a really important point. It certainly appears to be a trend over the last 18 months that we are seeing this phenomenon of mass shootings. We have a history of that in the 80s, but certainly not post-94. So in the last 18 months, this is definitely a new pattern of mass shootings. And is it, the question to ask is, so often it could be organized crime, but if we look at a family home, a private home that's targeted, is this a family feud? Is this copycat stuff? There needs to be some, we're looking at, so one of the trends we're picking up is that increasingly women are in that mix. Is that because it's a public space? So I think we're looking at 18 months of data. Is that enough to say this is a new trend? But certainly we're seeing from July last year this phenomenon. And it's worrying. It signals that it's organized crime, but it also signals that guns are easily available. And if you want to address this issue, one of the easiest steps is to make guns less available.